Good evening, good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which each of us are today, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. So as you've seen, this session is being recorded, but if you're okay with it, we'd love to see you on your video. So if you'd like to open your video so we can all see each other, that would be great. Please do stay on mute so that we can hear all the speakers very clearly. If you do have any questions, we'd welcome them, but just please put them in the chat. We have a pretty full program and we really want to finish on time. So if we can't get to your question during the session, we will try to respond later. I'm Mark Ellison from the Kehilat Nitzan Masorti community in Melbourne. Just 10 years ago, in July 2012, I was in Kiev for the induction of the first Masorti rabbi in Ukraine, Reuven Stamov. And frankly, at that time, the future seemed very bleak, both for Ukraine and for the Masorti community there. Given that many of the community leaders were leaving to go on Aliyah, I was doubtful that the community really had a future. Boy, how wrong I was. Under the inspired leadership of Rabbi Reuven, Stamov, and Lena, the Masorti community in Ukraine has become, over the last 10 years, one of the fastest growing and most dynamic in Europe, if not in the world. With thousands of members, the community has a youth movement, schools, summer camps. It really is an amazing story, which deserves to be told. But of course, unfortunately, it's not the story we're here for tonight. It's been a month since Russian forces invaded Ukraine. And since then, in fact, even well before then, as we'll hear, our 5 communities in the north, south, east, and west of the country have been organizing the response with the help of the Masorti network in Israel, in Europe, and around the world. So this is the story we'll hear tonight, one of urgent action and international solidarity among Masorti communities. To start, I'd like to introduce Rabbi Yonatan Sadoff from Kehilat Nitzan Masorti community in Melbourne, and who is also a board member of Masorti Olami. Rabbi Sadoff will share a brief prayer and then introduce Rabbi Reuven and Lena Stamov. Rabbi Yonatan, over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark, and for the work that you, Eric, and Tehila, and Rabbi Chaim, and all the rest have done to bring us together here tonight for such an urgent and important gathering, not only to learn more, but also to find out what we can do. I would like to start, though, with this prayer. Tefillah l'shalom ha'am be'Ukraina. And I'll say the Hebrew first and then the English. Eloheinu she'bashamayim yotzer kol basar u'mafli la'asot. Al damilach al techerash ve'al tishkot el. Ki hine kam ben bili ya'al ve'yomer al eretz acheret kumu v'nakuma alea lamilchama ve'ata shetzivitanu b'divrei kodshecha lemor lo ta'amod al dam reyecha ani Adonai emor lemashchit heref Ana Elohei haruchot lechol basar aseh bechochacha hagadol la'atzor et shfichut hadamim u'maseh hazva'a v'natata shalom ba'aretz v'simchat olam lechol yoshvea v'kuyam bam mikra shekatuv v'nichreta keshet milchama v'diber shalom lagoyim v'shafat ben hagoyim והוכיח לעמים רבים, וכיתתו חרבותם לעתים, וחניתותיהם למזמרות. לא יישא גוי אל גוי חרב, ולא ילמדו עוד מלחמה, ונאמר אמן. Our God in heaven, creator of all flesh, worker of wonders, do not stay silent, do not remain voiceless, do not keep aloof. For an evil man has come to power and declared war on another country, saying, we will rise up violently against you in battle. But you, God, have commanded us in your sacred scriptures, saying, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor. I am God. Therefore, make the aggressor desist from destruction. We pray to you now, God of the spirit of all flesh, to use your infinite power to end these acts of bloodshed and terror. Spread peace across the earth and bring joy to all its inhabitants, so that the words of the prophets can be fulfilled. The warrior's bow will be broken, and peace will be promised to all peoples. God will judge between the nations and arbitrate between many countries. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And let us say, Amen. Only 4 years ago, many of us met in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, for a Masorti Olami, an international Masorti conference, where we came together. Rabbi Reuven was there, Rabbi Rafi was there, some of the rest of you, John Furstenberg was there, and we came together to think about a future. Shortly, not so long afterwards, we've been through pandemic and now this terrible war. As we watch from where we are, I want you to know, Rabbi Rafi, Rabbi Reuven, Lena, to all of you, that we're terrified and shocked at what we see, and our hearts are with you. Rabbi Reuven and I go back to rabbinical school at Schechter in Israel, and then every time he walked into the Beit Midrash, he was full of life and simcha and joy, and spread that love of Judaism and of people to all of us. And I was so heartened to know that you were going to bring that back to the Ukraine and to do this holy work. And it was good to see you those 4 years ago and hear about what you were doing. And now we meet again and hear from you and from Lena about what's happening with our community. The Masorti movement may have small communities like our little one in Melbourne and the one in Sydney and the one in Kiev, but we are one united Masorti community who cares dearly, each and every one of us, about another, and we want to know how we can help you tonight and want to know what is happening from your perspective. So thank you for being here, and I will turn things over now to Lena and Rabbi Reuven. Thank you.
You want to put Lena on the screen as well?
Yes. So
Go ahead,
I
Lena.
just want to thank you to everyone and to wish to everyone Shavua Tov. And really, I miss now all people that are very, very, very close to me. And so what we have today in Ukraine, so we have some people who still be in Kyiv, Kharkov, Odessa, Chernovitz and Dnipro, and many people, it's mostly ladies and children. We had opportunity to move them to safety places. Thank you to Masorti Olami and Schechter, that children and families, ladies and families, they are in accepted in Berlin community, in Israel, but we have many people also that they are moved to Western Ukraine, to Chernovitz community, to it's really Western Ukraine. And so, as I know, they are preparing also for Pesach, and they are worrying how they will keep Pesach. So many people who are men, they mostly goes to defend their cities, which Kiev, Kharkov, some of them are Chernovitz and Odessa. And so I brought some pictures from Odessa that Noam Odessa is also preparing for Pesach, and they support their children who still in Odessa. They give their food, and today we have the same in Kiev. So we really thank you for all the prayers, and we feel all these prayers. And maybe you have some questions, so I can exactly to tell what happened, but I happened what we have today. So, how many people in Berlin? I know that many families are in Berlin, and so we have very close connection here in Israel, because every day we call to everyone and we write to everyone. And also I'm in a strong connection with people who are in Kharkiv, especially Noam Kharkiv, because I was responsible for Noam in Ukraine. And in Odessa, I know how many families and children, what they are doing now. And I know that in Chernovitz, and it's the Western community, they accept a lot of our refugees who escaped from Kharkiv, Kiev, and Dnipro, and some of them are in Odessa. So we still alive, and so we really pray and we wait that this terrible war will end. And so we pray and try to help people who are in our cities, because I know that we have some members of our community who can't escape from Kiev because they have some relatives they can move and other, but we are on a strong connection with them. Tehila, any questions? Whatever. And I really glad to see and hear you and to feel our unity, that we are as movement, we can be stronger, can support each other.
Lena, perhaps you could tell us a bit about the story of how the community, part of the community left Ukraine and where they went to, and how that happened.
Okay. Yes, it was really amazing story, because we planned the seminar about Jewish culture. It's like about Zionism, and we prepare, and the date was 24 of February. It was the really date what war began. So we prepared the seminar in Chernovitz, in the western part. It's near Romanian border, and many members of our community were ready in the evening, in the eve of this seminar, to come with their families. But some of them, they came not with their children, with their couples. So we were in Chernovitz, it's near Romanian border, to prepare. It's very famous city, town. It's famous about Yiddishkeit, about Jewish and influence to Eretz Israel. It was the city where many conference and many Zionism come from. So we prepared for this seminar, and people came to just on this seminar. It was ladies and children. It was some Noam group. And we started the seminar. It was 40 people, nearly 30, 40 people. And then when it was like the moment when we understood that Kiev and other Ukraine was bombed by Russian military. So we started to gather people who can escape from the cities. So we started to accept them in Chernovitz. And then we had a very good connection with Israel, with Tehila and Schechter, and we prepare the plan how to take these people to abroad, because we understood that it will be a lot of people. So people, we didn't know how long will be this war. So we prepare the plan, and very, very good organized plan how to take these people to our communities. And we visited community in Budapest. And so it was our way to Berlin, and from Budapest, some people went to Israel, and some people went to Berlin, and were really warm accepted to our communities, and they have all they need. And so it was really difficult way to organize them, to organize the food, to organize place, to organize transport. But it was very successful. I really wanted to thank to Tehila and to Eyal. You have you see him, Eyal. It was very connected to do order with all these documents. Because you know that many people didn't have documents with them, and we have a strong connection with our embassy. So Eyal was responsible to ask which documents, how can we go through abroad. So, and Reuven and we were just organized all this, how we call it, exodus. Really, we call it exodus from this war. And I know that we have another group who now in Chernovitz, where they also waiting how to go to another community, because we didn't know how long this war will be. So we really thankful for this unity that we feel, that to people who accept us. Thank you to Tehila and all Kehilot in Europe. And also we know that all communities over the world that pray for us, help us, they give us money to organize all this operation, how we call it. And what else can I say? That we didn't understand for the end what happened really, because we know that most people there, we are shocked that it was very extreme and very quickly all these decisions, move, not move, who will move, how it will be. So many people who are now in a safety place in Israel or in Berlin, and even in Chernovitz in Western Ukraine, when we talking, that people just feel that they are like on a bad dream. So we didn't understand what happened really. But we are really thank you that thank to everyone in our movement that give us all this support and give us really, you all save our life. So thank you so much.
Rabbi Reuven, Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about where the community is today. How many have left? How many are still there? What their situation is? Are you in touch? Are you able to be in touch with them? And Tehila, perhaps you could translate.
Yes, I'm happy to translate where the community is today and how many.
מתרגמת מאנגלית לאנגלית.
Are you asking in Ukraine, Mark?
Yeah, so
Mark?
how many are still there? How many have left?
לנה, את רואה את דוד?
תדבר.
אוקיי, אחר כך, בסדר. היו לנו, למשל בחרקוב, כ-20 תלמידים בבית ספר, כ-100 תלמידים בבית ספר.
We had in Kharkiv about 100 kids in the school.
זאת אומרת שזה 100 ומשהו משפחות.
So it's 100 plus families.
היום יצאו מחרקוב אולי חצי.
Today, about half of those people were able to escape Kharkiv.
In קייב בעצם כל מי שרצה לעזוב את קייב עזב.
In Kiev, anyone that wanted to leave Kiev already left.
בדרך זו או אחרת, כאילו, אבל עזבו. באודסה, נדמה לי שרוב האנשים נשארים, כי אודסה לא תחת האש.
In Odessa, he thinks that most people are still staying there because Odessa isn't under fire right now.
אבל זה מקום מסוכן לדעתי, זה מקום הבא שרוסים יכולים להיכנס.
It's a very dangerous place, and there's a lot of potential there. For
המקום הבטוח זה צ'רנוביץ.
The safe place right now is Chernovitz.
שזה מערב אוקראינה, זה גבול עם רומניה.
Western Ukraine border with Romania.
נדמה לי שרק 2 אנשים מצ'רנוביץ עזבו, והם בארץ היום.
So about 2 people originally from Chernovitz got out, and they're in Israel right now.
רוב האנשים מעדיפים לשבת בבית מאשר לעזוב את הבתים.
There are many people that prefer just to stay at home and wait it out as opposed to leaving and running away from their house.
לא יודע אם עניתי.
No, that's great. I also see some questions in the chat that when I speak, I'll get to some of those answers. So just to let you know.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the questions is that maybe I can ask now is the Russians talk a lot about fighting the fascists, who are presumably anti-Semites. Have you any experience of that either in Ukraine or the refugees who are leaving? Do they have any problems with anti-Semitism?
Lena, you can answer also.
Yes, I understand with this question, but what I have to tell you that just today I was talking with my friend. She is journalist. She's from Kiev and she is Jewish, and we also talking a lot of politics with her, and she helped to our army and to our territorial army in Kiev. And she told me today that maybe today, after all this meeting that was in Israel, that in Israel yesterday was a lot of meeting with Russian flags. Not a lot of, but it is in all photo they received. Many people received all this photo. And today she's talking that Ukrainians really worried about this. But that Ukrainian communities, Jewish communities, they help not only for Jews now. They help also for all people, especially in Kiev community. They help for territorial army that to defend the Kiev. And so all the anti-Semitism what we have today in Ukraine, it's not just we feel some like anti-Semitic, I don't know. Nobody tell us that you are Jews and other, but all this talking, anti-Semitic talking, they are came from Russian army and from Russian propaganda. And even in Israel, they do what they want to do, just to tell that Ukrainians are just Nazis and other, but we didn't feel it. All these 10 years, it was only provocations that we understood now that Russians wanted to write about this and to tell photos, and so we have many information that they paid to people just to draw the Nazis symbolic and other things. And you know that from yesterday that in Kharkov the monument that was dedicated to Holocaust was ruined, and also in Kiev we have some rocket attack on our territory of Babi Yar. So all this information and all this attack, they are not from Ukrainian army, not from Ukrainians, they are from Russians. And so in Ukraine, they really understand that Ukrainian Jewry, they are like, they are good citizens, and we didn't feel this press. Only press, what we feel, it's from Russian SME and from Russian propaganda. And they try to say that Ukrainian, and you know that we have Ukrainian president and we have all our right, and we celebrated all this, our Jewish holidays and Hanukkah in the center of the city. So it's unfortunately, but we understood from all this information came. They work, we have not only war, we have also media war with Russia.
Thank you, Lena. Perhaps one last question is, what would you say your greatest needs are now? What do you need most for the community that's left Ukraine?
In my opinion, what I'm talking about today with many our members, and I know that so Reuven, that they are asking me how they will keep Pesach. So today, many people ask where we will receive, how we will receive matzah, should we bake it, how? So today, what I'm talking with people from Kiev, they ask me that how they will do Pesach in Kiev. So I know that in Chernihiv they also prepared, in Kharkiv, maybe matzah. Matzah, they are worried about matzah. We know that Reuven will talk with them. How will it be? Because you know that Pesach is Pesach. How can they keep Pesach during the war? How it will keep kosher Pesach during the war? But they worried about this. And I know that we have an opportunity to help people buy food and even buy the biggest problem is medicine, because they know that in Kiev, we can't buy some medicine for people. This is a problem. Medicine, Pesach, and some people also want to move from Kiev, and we could move people who are old because they have really problems. It's really long and hard way to move from Ukraine now.
Thank you, Lena. And Rabbi Reuven, do you have
Now it's mean today. Now it's mean today because you know that every day and every hour the news are different.
Okay, Rabbi Reuven, do you have a last word for the Australian Masorti community?
אני רוצה להגיד קודם כל תודה לכולם, לכל המסורתי עולמי, אני חושב, לכל הקהילות שלנו שמאוד עוזרות, ולרבנים שאני למדתי איתם, רבי יונתן, רבי רפי, וזוכר ואוהב.
I want to thank the Masorti Olami and the entire Masorti movement, the communities around the world, and the rabbis that I remember and love, Rabbi Yonatan and Rabbi Rafi.
ותודה לכולכם, אני מרגיש מאוד את התמיכה שלכם, זה כאילו...
And thank you all. We very much feel your support.
ותודה לתהילה, תודה לרבי חיים, תודה לאשתי לנה.
Thank you to Rabbi Chaim. Thank you to Tehila. Thank you to my wife, Lena.
זה מאוד חשוב להרגיש את התמיכה שלכם, ואני מאוד שמח לראות היום את דוד אלסן.
It's very important for us to feel your support, and today I'm happy to see David on the Zoom.
שהוא היה דווקא בפסח אצלנו בקייב לפני 7 שנים, משהו.
He was in Kiev, in their house for Pesach a few years ago.
והוא לימד את הבת הגדולה שלי לשחמט.
He taught his daughter how to play backgammon.
Yes. Yeah.
Chess, sorry.
So I think it's a demonstration of the very close links between Masorti communities around the world. So I just want to thank you again, Rabbi Reuben and Lena. You're incredibly busy trying to help the community, both still in Ukraine and out already. And we really appreciate the time you've taken to tell us about what's going on. So our next speaker will be Tehila Reuben, who's our translator as well. She's based in Jerusalem, and she's deputy director at Masorti Olami and MERCAZ Olami, and she's responsible for the network of international Masorti communities. And it's Tehila who's been coordinating the relief effort for our Ukrainian communities that's going on at the moment. So Tehila, thanks you as well so much for being with us. And why don't you start by telling us where you are now and what you're doing.
Sure. Hi, thank you, Mark. And I mean, thank you to our Australian communities, to Eric, to John, to both rabbis for putting this together. I think we've been slowly moving around the world via Zoom. And it's, I mean, as Rabbi Reuven said, it's been incredibly supportive. I know, I mean, I'm just sitting in front of a computer and doing all this, but it's incredibly supportive to feel your support and you know, your care. So thank you guys. First of all, I apologize for the background here. We're actually right now in Berlin. I'm here with Rabbi Stamov, and I'll also introduce you to Ayal. Ayal is from the communities in Ukraine, and he's our unofficial captain of the group that we took out of Ukraine about 2 weeks ago, and has just been, you know, amazing in managing the group here. So we're currently in Berlin. We came together with our executive director from Masorti Olami, Rabbi Mauricio Balter. We came to Berlin 2 days ago on a very last minute trip, and we brought Rabbi Reuven as well to basically meet with the Ukrainian the refugees, but as the rabbi here in the Berlin community calls them, they're now their Ukrainian guests. We came to meet with them, to bring them a lot of supplies that we were able to buy in Israel, and to basically hear what their needs are, so we can go back and kind of start planning for however long it's going to be. So I think Lena already touched on a lot of the story here, but I did see some questions that I want to answer in a bit from our side. So first of all, I'll say that Masorti Olami is working in complete partnership with the Schechter Institutes on our support in Ukraine. We, in 2012, when Rabbi Reuven Stamov was first installed in Ukraine, that's when we started, building and supporting our communities there. And ever since then, it's been a complete partnership. And as I think Mark had said, one of our fastest growing regions. It's been incredible. I mean, you can look on their Facebook pages. The amount of activities that go on there is just, you wouldn't believe that in 2012 there was nothing there. So really amazing, kol hakavod to Rabbi Reuven and Lena for building such an amazing foundation and base there in Ukraine. And basically when the war started, it just kind of happened that we immediately got involved, and we saw, and speaking to Rabbi Reuven and Lena on the ground, we saw that there was an immediate need to help out. I mean, they needed outside help to get people out and outside resources. And we obviously immediately started a fundraising campaign, which I'll put the information down in the chat later. And we've already been receiving an incredible amount of support from Australia, from around the world. So thank you for that. But that has directly enabled us to take people out. And I kind of look at it as a game of chess. I mean, it's not a game, obviously, but we're moving people from all different places in Ukraine and basically trying to get them out to safety. No one knows how long they're going to stay there or anything, but the idea is just to get them out to safety, and then we'll take one day at a time. So I will just split the explanation of our support into two areas. One is within the Ukraine, and the other one will be in Europe, which I'll also leave to the next speaker to go more into detail about. But as it's been said a few times, we have 5 communities in the Ukraine, and because Chernivtsi, which is on the border, the western border, it's because it's a little bit safer right now. That has basically turned into the unofficial refugee camp, and they're also, they have the ability to welcome people. We've rented extra apartments and hotel rooms and ordered more food to be able to host everyone, and even non-community members pass through that refugee camp at some point or another to eventually on their way out to Ukraine. So that's really where majority of our people are today. And as Rabbi Reuven said, and Lena said, that there's a lot of people that are not going to leave for various reasons, whether they don't want to leave their partners, their fathers, whatever, the men that are not able to leave, or they're just, they're not ready to leave their house. And we can't force anyone to leave. We understand. So we're focusing on supporting people that are still in Ukraine, whether it's transferring them funds, whether it's sending medical supplies. We had someone go to Ukraine about a week ago, someone from Schechter, actually, from the Schechter Institutes, and she flew in for Purim for basically 24 hours, and we packed an entire suitcase. I went to the pharmacy and bought all of the things that I was allowed to legally buy that they needed, and we sent it off to them. We sent supplies for Purim and whatever basic things we could send that they weren't able to have access to. And that's our idea, to basically support in whatever way we can. I mean, right now you can't really ship things to the Ukraine. It's not very reliable. So we know people traveling to the border. We know people occasionally traveling into Ukraine. So we will continue to be sending things as we can. And Lena spoke about also the challenge of Pesach and matzah and kosher meat and everything. And I know that both Rabbi Reuven and Lena and Ayal also are working very hard on trying to make some sort of Pesach happen for the communities in Ukraine. And someone actually asked, I think, about logistically how do we get everyone out? So I'll quickly say that when about 2 weeks ago, when we took out the big group of people, which was about 40 people, they left Chernivtsi and crossed the border into Romania, and we got a bus full of there was a bus full of people, and then 2 cars. Rabbi Reuven and his family was in one car, and there was another family. There were some other people in the other car. And after a very long time of waiting, I mean, Rabbi Reuven's family was there for, I think, over 25 hours waiting on the border. And when they finally got through on the other side, I call them our angels, but we've been working with the JDC, who we just connected with. I mean, I reached out to just a hotline number, and we got connected with, our guardian angel on the border there that has been arranging and helping us get buses. We even had to get an ambulance to transport someone who wasn't well. and just any sort of need that we need on the border there. And they welcomed everyone when they crossed the border, gave them food and took them in. So every step of the way, we're just, I'm overwhelmed with how many people have been so incredibly helpful and just, giving support, endless support. And from there, we then we continued the trip to the western border of Romania to a town called Oradea. We basically put everyone there for, I think, a day and a half to basically just rest and recover from the whole journey before they continue on into the rest of Europe. And I'll just share, there's a local Jewish community there that we have nothing to do with, we didn't even know existed. And they completely took them in, and we put them at a hotel, but the Jewish community insisted on inviting them for a meal and just taking care of them, which was just again, amazing to see. And from there, we basically we took people to their different destinations. I mean, there were people that their destination was Berlin. There are people that eventually wanted to go to Israel, so they stopped off in Budapest to be able to then continue and to Israel once they sort out all their paperwork. And really, I mean, I'll save that for the next speaker, and I know I'm also going over my time, but the communities in Europe have been incredible. We have in Poland and Prague, we have two communities that have been welcoming many refugees who stop by on their way, whether it's to Berlin or to whatever their final destination for now is. And they'll meet people at the border, at the bus stop, pick them up, put them, in home hospitality or at a hotel, whatever it is that obviously, we'll help support in whatever way we can financially. But it's been incredibly comforting. As I said, we're back here behind the computer playing this, kind of game of chess, of moving people around, but to know that there's people on the ground who are actually caring for our community members is incredibly comforting. And here in Berlin, to see what Rabbi Giza Ederberg, the rabbi of our Masorti community here in Berlin, to see how she's welcomed the group of people is, it's just something that personally I've never seen before. I don't know that many people have been in this situation before, but it's a very complicated thing to do, to just take in. She's doubling her community, and it's an amazing community to be in, but it's incredible work. And our hope is that the Ukrainian guests also feel comfortable here and know that they have a home basically in any community across Europe and Israel and beyond, Australia. But that's just, I think, the biggest takeaway here, that we are all in this together and we are all, here to support. The last thing I want to reference, someone asked about Israel. So I will say that while Masorti Olami is not necessarily the movement in Israel, that's the Masorti Israel, that's a separate organization. Because we're actually based in Jerusalem, we are working together with Masorti Israel to handle the whole accepting of the refugees on Israel's side. So Masorti Israel has really taken control of that, and they've set up a whole team to welcome the refugees that we bring over and hopefully set them up with a Masorti community, those that want to, home hospitality or some sort of lodging in the beginning, and clothes and needs for apartments, whether it's beds, microwave, whatever it is to get them set up. Our movement in Israel is doing that. Basically what we're seeing is in every country, the movement, obviously not just the movement, but I can only speak for our movement, is taking on the project of making them feel at home and making sure that they're cared for. So I will end by saying, I know that often people feel very helpless, and even writing a check or sending a donation is nothing. They want to get involved. Right now, physically getting involved is limited unless you have certain connections or you're in certain professions, etc. But I want to tell you firsthand, as being on the other side of it, that the funds are essential and they are literally saving lives. They are enabling us to do what we're doing. They're enabling these refugees to live some sort of normal. It's not normal life, but some sort of normalcy, and we need it. and we thank you for the support that you've been giving up until now. And yeah, I'm here. I don't know if there's any questions. I'm here, or if we want to move on. Mark, do we have time for questions? Should I move on to the next one? The next speaker?
I think let's move on. If there are questions, put them in the chat and we can respond to them later.
Great. So I will pass on the microphone to Rabbi Chaim Weiner, our dear director of Masorti Europe and of Beit Din, who will speak a little bit more about things on the European side and the way other communities more in Western Europe have been, what they've been dealing with and how they've been handling it. And yes, Chaim, I call upon you.
Okay, so shalom to everyone, and thank you for being here. And I want to thank all of the previous speakers. So I'm Rabbi Chaim Weiner. I'm based in London. I have two positions in the Masorti movement. I'm the director of Masorti Europe, so I help develop our communities across the continent. And I'm the head of the European Beit Din, and just the way it's structured, we also have responsibility for Ukraine. So I've been working with communities in Ukraine for many years, and once a year spend time in some of those communities, and I've seen all of the development and seen all of the wonderful work of Rabbi Reuven. Obviously, all of us watched the news develop leading up to the Russian invasion, and all of us were in horror. I would say that for me personally, the point that it became real and the point that it became personal was sitting at my computer on a Zoom meeting, like many of us doing our work, and my phone rings, and it's someone is in the Israeli consulate in Bucharest saying he just got out of Ukraine and he wants to get to Israel, and he's sitting with the consul who said that if within an hour he gets the document he needs about his Jewish status, he'll be able to get on that flight, and if not, he won't be able to get on that flight. And I'd have to drop everything and produce the documents they need, which is part of my role with the Beit Din. And from that moment on, it was nonstop, really, because we're talking about moments for some people, it's life and death, and for some people, it's really escaping hardship and dealing with very real situations. And it's not just watching the news for us, it's really what we can do to rise the occasion. And I would say that across our European communities, there's so much hope, so much need and wish to help in any way we can. And many of us just feel impotent because we're not able to do more to stop the horror that we see. But we have communities all across Europe, and in this particular crisis, we tend to divide them into what we call the frontline communities and the support communities. So the frontline communities are the communities in Budapest and in Berlin and in Prague and in Warsaw. And they're frontline communities because those are the communities where the refugees are arriving, and arriving in different ways. So in Prague and in Warsaw, there's no organized way that the Masorti movement is bringing people there, but millions of people are crossing the border into Warsaw, and amongst them Jewish people, crossing the border into Poland, and amongst them Jewish people, and they're ending up in Warsaw. And the Masorti community there is an address that they know that if they reach that address, they're going to find support, and they're going to find care, and they're going to find help with whatever kind of help they need, whether they want to stay in Warsaw or whether they want to move on to other places. And Prague is a similar situation. But the communities that have really needed to rise to the occasion are the communities in Budapest and Berlin, each for a different set of reasons. So as Tehila explained, our route for bringing people out of Ukraine is really for people to get to Chernovich internally in Ukraine with however they manage to get there. And it's very hard for us to control that process. But once they reach Chernovich, there are rooms and there are hotels, and we put people up. And when there's enough people, we organize a bus, and they get to the border of Romania. And once they get across the border into Romania, that's the point that we can pick them up. And then those buses from the border in Romania, their route is first to go to Budapest, and then from Budapest to go on to Berlin. And the reason for that is that Budapest is, first of all, it's on the route, and anyone who's heading on to Israel, we drop them off at the airport in Budapest, or we drop them with the community in Budapest, and it's from Budapest that they're flying on to Israel. And Tehila knows more numbers than me, but I imagine about 20% of people are interested in heading in the direction of Israel, and 80% are staying in Europe. And the vast majority of them want to stay in the in Central Europe and towards the east of Europe, because these aren't people who are looking to resettle in France or in England because they want to build new lives. These are people whose lives are in the Ukraine, who are looking for temporary refuge because they want to get back to their homes and to their families and to their lives, and they want to be near the friends and the family that they've left behind. A word about the community in Budapest. In Budapest, we have a relatively young community. The vast majority of the members have come in through Marom, which is our young adults group. Budapest has a large Jewish community, and in the tens of thousands of people, 80, 90,000 people in the Jewish community in Budapest. And we've had for many years a young, socially active group of people with actually one of their big activities for Tikkun Olam is working with refugees. And their work with refugees has actually put them in a bad position in relation to the Hungarian government, which is very illiberal and frowns on their work with Roma and with other refugees coming in. But this is a community that knows who cares about refugees and knows how to work with refugees. And when the bus comes from Romania, like that, what impressed me, it wasn't about finding a restaurant or finding a hotel. It's kind of all hands on deck, coming in, cooking the meals. They wanted everything to be done internally in the community. It doesn't matter if people arrive at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning or whatever. The community just came out and wanted to give that message that everyone is welcome, and their job is really to host people in Budapest as long as they need to be there, either because they're on transit to Berlin or because they're waiting there until the paperwork has been sorted out and that they're able to continue on flights to Israel. From there, our bus goes to Berlin, and Berlin has really received the majority of the people who have left. There are several reasons for that. First of all, it's in Eastern Europe. It's or Central Europe, but towards the east. It has received Russian and Ukrainian Jews for many, many years, which means that the majority of the German Jewish communities have Russian speakers in them, if not the majority of people speaking Russian. So the people feel at home. It has a reputation for its care for refugees, and that's the community that it's accepted the majority of people. And accepting people means finding families who are willing to host, and that's not been a problem. For the time being, they've managed to find families for everyone. There's a very developed framework in the community for volunteers, for meals. It's a very, very organized community, and they're really our frontline. They're really our frontline community. And maybe I would just say a word about some of the other European communities. There's a frustration in other European communities because everyone wants to do something. It's impossible to look at the news reports. It's impossible to have grown up with a kind of philosophy of never again, and to watch on television and see again it's happening, and not to want to do something. And it's important to know what that something is. And the first consideration needs to be just the people coming out. What do they actually need, and what do they want, and how do we serve them? And it's not about the people who want to help. So you know, I have families in Madrid who want to receive refugees, but refugees aren't heading to Madrid. The refugees are heading to Berlin, and the refugees are heading to Warsaw and to Budapest. They don't need people flying to the border to help people go across. They just get in the way. What the number one need at the time is, first of all, just financial resources. The difference between having the money to hire a bus and not having the money to hire a bus, the difference between in Chernovich, being able to go to a hotel and rent the rooms because we know that there's money there to rent hotel rooms, and we can tell anyone, if you arrive, we can take care of you, and not having that money available now. I think that the big success of the Masorti response has been that we reacted very quickly, and we put the framework in very quickly, and funds have come in very quickly. And when on the ground we need to do something, the money is there in order to do it, and that has made a really big difference. So in my community, New North London Synagogue in North London, we have, you know, there's tens of families who want to take in refugees, but there aren't tens of families of refugees who have reached the United Kingdom and are looking for those families. So we have thousands of families in the United Kingdom who want to take refugees, but the needs are different. The needs are, people want to be relatively near where they can go back home. They want to be with their friends who have already made that journey. They want to be around where culturally they feel comfortable, and those are the needs. And so that's the organization that we have. We encourage people to get to Chernovich. We help people come from Chernovich to Budapest, to Israel, to Berlin. And once people have settled in Berlin, we do ask people, do you want to stay here or do you want to move on? And if people want to move on to other countries, then there are definitely communities that want to be helpful. But in terms of what we can do is to understand what the people are looking for and to try to meet their needs as well as possible. And the number one need at the moment is actually just to have the funds in order to buy and to bring the things that they need at the moment, and to support those communities that are on the front line. Okay.
Sorry, we have some question in chat, and now I received all this information about pogrom in Zhytomyr, and I can I answer just 1 minute?
Sure, Lena, please go ahead.
Yes, please go ahead.
It's absolutely fake, because I now just wrote to my colleagues, journalist, and what we have now, that they wrote me the links that it's absolutely fake Russian information. So we have a lot of just informative war with Russia, and they now wanted to put information that Israel doesn't help to Ukraine, and that we have pogrom in Ukraine, but it's really fake. I just promise, because I have all this link that government and all people in Zhytomyr said that it's not true information. And our building, Kyiv community building, is staying, and today we have volunteers that help our old people from this building, from our kosher kitchen, to give them food. So thank you so much for worrying about us, but we have really a lot of fake information about anti-Semitism in Ukraine.
Thank you very much, Lena. I want to hand over now to my friend and my colleague, Rabbi Rafi Kaiserblueth from the Emanuel community in Sydney, to talk more about the Australian part of the story.
Hey, thank you so much, Chaim. It's really always a pleasure to see you. And Reuven, also you. It's been quite a while since we studied together in the yeshiva in the Beit Midrash with Rabbi Sadoff in Jerusalem. It's always the blessings, I suppose, that we've allowed ourselves the use of this technology for the last several years. And I find myself on a regular basis reconnecting with old friends from the various different chapters and stages of my life, whether it was studying in Israel or working so many years alongside Rabbi Chaim Weiner in Israel, in the United Kingdom, and traveling where we did, and now the last several years here in Australia. And one of the things that I think that it really highlights for me is how connected we really are in this world that we live in. And it not just in the beautiful, nice phrase that we say that actually means nothing, but the fact that we really do have longstanding connections and world travelers amongst each of our communities that can really bring home the seriousness and the personal stories of each of everything that we've been hearing so far. And I think the best way that we can say this is here, yeah, many of us feel a bit helpless. Many of us feel there's not much we can do living here in Australia, isolated as we are, with our borders really open the last several months, but also realizing that there's not much we can send because nothing will get there. I know that one of the people in our office now is worried about her family there in Russia. She can't reach them. She was supposed to be there seeing them, and she has no way of knowing exactly where they are, how they are going to get out, if they can get out, and the inability completely to send anything meaningful or really anything full stop. So what is it that we can do? And I think Rabbi Chaim was beginning to touch on this, that we all have a desire to want to help in the way that we feel would be most helpful. But in much the same way, when we're comforting someone who suffered a loss, or we are being where with someone who is celebrating, it's incumbent and behooves us to make sure that we are there helping, not in the way that we want, but in the way that the person receiving it needs to have it. And really, there is no short way, no other nice way to say it, except the best and really at this point only way to help is to make sure that the people who were there on the front lines are receiving the funds that they need to do this important holy work. All of Israel, Kol Yisrael Averim Zebazeh, all of us are responsible for one another. We can't do much else except click on these links that Tehila has sent, give a little bit, every little bit, I am told, every little bit will help. Every little bit will ensure that at least one person can get a seat on a bus, one person can get a meal, one person can get a clean set of clothing, one person can be reunited with a family member, and most importantly, at least one person can be taken to a place of safety. There is an incredible amount of work still to be done. This is a story that is going to continue to be unfolding. This is a story that is going to perhaps, unfortunately, fade into the limelight, into the background of news stories, but there are real people, thousands of people that are needing help every single day. So click on these links, and the best thing and the only thing we can do from here, blessed in our safety where we are, is to continue to give tools to those who are fighting this fight, to give the safety and comfort to those who are fleeing these war-torn areas. So again, please, the link that is there, and the one thing you should also know that the vast majority of the funds that you will be donating, there is not a lot of overhead in this. This is almost completely going, or if I'm not mistaken, completely going to those who will need it. It's not paying for administration. It's not paying for anything else. It is going directly to where it needs to go. So all that you can give will be helpful, will be useful. And we implore you to help our brothers and our sisters who are fleeing this terrible situation in the Ukraine. To wrap up the evening now, I'll turn it back over to Mark in Melbourne. This is Rafi from Sydney. It's been wonderful to connect and see all my good friends from literally all over the world. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Rafi. And I would like to thank everyone who's been involved in helping to put on this session, which I can tell you was no mean feat, with speakers from 4 countries and clocks changing in 3 of them this weekend. But we all got here in time, so well done. Thanks to all the speakers, Rabbi Yonatan, Rabbi Reuven and Lena, Tehila, Rabbi Chaim and Rabbi Rafi, and also to those on the technical side, Oliver Davis for looking after the Zoom so well, and Rachel Kaiserblueth for the marketing side, and also to Eric Lundberg, president of Masorti Australia, who's just came down with COVID today, but was really the driving force behind this event. And of course, thanks to all of you on this session, both for listening to the story and for the help that I know you're going to give to our Masorti brothers and sisters in this, really their time of great need. We're going to stop the recording now, Oliver, but we'll leave the Zoom on for a few minutes if people want to chat. You come off mute and have a bit of a chat. But this is now the end of the proceedings. And thanks everyone, and good night.